yeah, just so I'll be here and chime in when there is less noise and less inappropriateness.
All righty. Well, we are starting, we started recording, so we'll go do that one for all posterity's sake along those lines. So we'll do that, and that way we get it posted up on the Marketo Virtual User Group YouTube channel, which is great. So anyway, so welcome to our second virtual user group meeting today. So thanks for everybody joining. Feel free to put cameras on or off as you feel so you like. Andrew has kids running around in the background on this warm day here in Utah, so he's doesn't know what's going to happen along those lines, but we'll see how it goes. Anyway, so great to see a lot of new faces and everybody's faces at this. It's kind of a it's hopefully we've been talking that we're going to kind of get out of this moving from those of you that are not in Utah. We kind of put together kind of a they put together kind of a color mapping type of scheme. So in other words, we went from red, orange, yellow, and green. Green being basically everything's back to normal. Most of the states in yellow. A few places, there's a couple places like Salt Lake and a couple other counties are still kind of an orangish yellow kind of, scenario. But one of the guys, Cameron, you were just saying that might be going to green here in the next month or so, which basically means life to normal. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. And we went to the yellow state about a week ago. Of course, with Memorial Day weekend, we'll see if there's, see how that impacts in. But the good news is that, hey, life's going back to normal. So maybe we'll get together and face-to-face sooner than we like to. So that'd be great. Alrighty, so really quickly, let's jump through some housekeeping items. One, we want to thank Ribbon as our sponsor today, and we'll be hearing from them here shortly. So we'll jump through housekeeping items. We'll talk about our upcoming meeting schedule. We'll let Andrew talk about the MasterMind session that we're going to be doing today, and what is it? I'm sure all of you want to know, how do you get your digital gift card? So, hey, we're attended, so hey, what do gimme. So how do we get it? So we'll talk about that. And then we're pleased to have a couple of folks from Ribbon with us. And, I'm sure I'm going to slide your name, Janish, but Janish Shah, okay, perfect, who's the CEO of Ribbon, so he's with us. And Rita Khan, who is the marketing manager there at Ribbon, so are both with us today. So basically, give thanks for them for the gift card you'll all be receiving today. So thankful for that standpoint. And then after we're done with that presentation, we'll have the MasterMind session, and Andrew will lead us on that from that standpoint. And then if we have any Q&A sessions, time, we'll all hang on as we'd like to, or you can kind of jump off as your life gets to you for the rest of the day. So just really quickly, housekeeping rules and values. As we know, right, safe place to learn, problem solve, open collaborative, make fun and enjoyable. As Cameron's showing us, and Ian with the background, so thank you guys for sharing those. That's wonderful. By the way, Cameron, just let you know, I did download some of the Star Wars from last time, and so some of the meetings I've been on, people are like, where'd you get that? I'm like, yeah, one of the guys from my user group sent me the link, so yeah, it's pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah. That one and the Top Gun one, those are the top ones. Seem to be kind of the fun ones. So basically just want to make sure that we're networking and asking questions, right? You got a lot of smart people here, so let's open it up for that standpoint, and we'll talk about the MasterMind session there a little bit. Really quickly, the Adobe Summit, those sessions are still online, so if you have not had a chance or want to go back and review, go for it, take advantage of them, and continue to watch them. Like I said, they're about 25 minutes or less for the most part, so great stuff. And like I said, the beautiful thing is that they're online, and you can go back through and pause and capture notes, screen capture, of that nature. Alrighty, so our upcoming sessions. So today's the 27th. We actually have the Power of Digital Gifting MasterMind session. So we'll be talking about that today, and from that standpoint. And then we are going to have another virtual meeting right now on June the 17th, called really sponsored by NAC, but creating on-brand emails with no coding required. So we're thankful for NAC for wanting to join us next month. So I kind of talk about kind of how to do that, right? So if you haven't heard about NAC or kind of how to do this, it's pretty cool stuff actually. So pretty sweet. And then from there, depending on if we can meet or not meet, we got July is still to be determined. And then August, we decided we want to take a summer break. Normally we do it in July and August for our summer breaks, but since we're virtual, kind of July's up for debate, so you guys can, if you're want to have a virtual meeting, another meeting in July, feel free to add into the chat window and talk about kind of yay, nay from that perspective. But I know July gets pretty busy with here in Utah, right? We have 2 holidays with the 4th of July. I know it's a Pioneer Day, so that's why we kind of avoid it. It's kind of a big, and if you go to a greed stage, right, people might be wanting to finally break the chains and get out there and get away for a while. So, so that's where we're leaning towards not to have it, but we're open to it if you want to do it from that standpoint. All right, so I'm going to turn this over to Andrew really quickly, talk about what the MasterMind session is, so that at least we have an idea of what we're going to be talking about there, here in a little bit. So, Andrew, if you're there, without kids running around, and maybe.
Yeah, sorry, children. So yeah, so a mastermind session. So I don't know if you guys, how many of you guys are familiar with this in the professional development arena, but what a mastermind session is essentially someone comes with a problem or an issue, and they essentially get put in a hot seat, for lack of a better term, and they kind of allow the mastermind or allow the group to kind of help to kind of solve the problem for them. So these are supposed to be kind of, slightly stickier ideas, maybe, and it can be anything, right? So it can be anything from issues with Marketo to issues with marketing just in general. So so that's kind of what a mastermind session is designed to do. Again, sorry for all the background noise, children and at home. So that's kind of the idea. And then, if you want to nominate your idea today, Trent, remind me if I'm wrong here, but I think what we wanted to do is to say, if you want to sit in the hot seat for a little while, and let the mastermind kind of help, give all of our focus to that particular problem, put it in the chat. And when we get to that point in the session today, we'll bring that up and let everybody kind of ponder on that particular problem together.
Yep. So yeah, put all that. So if you have an idea or suggestion, as Andrew talked about, throw it into the chat window, and then when we get to that point, we'll extract, roll the dice, vote, choose, whatever the case may be. We'll pick on one of them, and we'll start with that one. If there's ones that we'll roll, and some of the ones we don't get to, we'll roll over to next month as well. So this would be great.
Right. And yeah, don't be afraid. Like this one, the idea here is to kind of, I apologize for the frou-frou-ness of this particular statement, but it's to kind of give yourself over to the mastermind a little bit and let the collective brilliance of everybody kind of help with whatever ideas that you might need. And so, and let's not just limit it to, any issues within Marketo. Although I know that's why we're all here. If there's other things that, within marketing or within your role that, that you want to kind of use the group for, let's talk about those, and let's be helpful to one another.
Okay. So, voting is now open, right? Your submissions are now open, basically, is what we're looking for. So feel free to add those into the chat.
Yep, totally.
Yep, cool. All righty. So we look forward to those submissions, and we'll look forward to chatting about it. All right. So probably what everybody's really interested in here is outside the presentation, how to claim your gift card. So what it is we're Andrew and I decided to take a full advantage of this one at the discretion of ourselves, and of course, thankful to the folks at Ribbon. But for the gift card, they didn't have to do a survey, but we said we're going to ask for a survey anyways. So there are technically 4 short questions with also a point to where you want your gift card delivered. So if you go to this link, and also paste this link into the chat window as well. But you 4 short questions is about the Salt Lake mug, kind of how it's going, how it's feeling, suggestions, ideas, thoughts, recommendations, that type of stuff. So that's what we're kind of collecting today. And you fill that out, and then just basically type in the email address where you want your gift card to be delivered. So if you want to go to your personal email address, put that in there, and then we take this, once you collect all the information, and we send this to the people at Ribbon, and then they'll deliver the gift cards to you. There's an automatic way to do this way, but unfortunately, between what we have with limitation with Marketo and the Bevy platform and the free version of SurveyMonkey, not really happening. So there's other ways to do it more efficiently, but that's the best way we're going to do it today. So feel free to grab that, type that link in, and like I said, I also put it into there as well, into the chat window for everybody to look at. So with that, we're going to turn the time over to Junesh and the team at Ribbon to talk about the power of digital gifting. So feel free to share your screen and go take it from here.
Thank you, Trent. And very excited to be here. I actually visit Utah, particularly the Salt Lake City and the Provo area, at least 3 or 4 times a year. One of our major partners is based out of Provo, Qualtrics. So beautiful part of the country, absolutely. And great to see that you guys are actually moving towards a green rating. So fantastic. Hope you guys will really enjoy more of your summer than we will over here in the DC area where we are based. Still very much kind of stay at home kind of situation, but we'll see where it goes. But thank you so much for having me here. And let me share my screen with you. Trent, you may have to stop sharing for me to start sharing, I think. There you go. So I have about a 15-minute agenda planned for you here today. And I'm also joined today by Rita Khan, who's our marketing manager at Ribbon. And she, in fact, uses Ribbon on a day-to-day basis for a lot of our marketing. But what I'm here to talk about today are marketing programs, demand generation programs, customer lifecycle marketing programs that can be powered and boosted and enhanced with the use of integrated digital rewards. And I have actually a series of specific programs that we have been supporting since March. So we launched about 50 programs since sort of the pandemic was formally announced to support marketers during this very difficult and challenging times. So hopefully you can actually take away some very actionable and useful program ideas that you yourself should be able to implement, maybe starting next week. I'll give you a short sort of demonstration of how we work with Marketo. But we also work with a variety of other tools, everything from Marketo, HubSpot, SurveyMonkey, Qualtrics, referral marketing tools like Talkable, or you can use Ribbon standalone as well. And that's another way to do it. We've been in business for over 6 years now. And we largely focus on the marketing team or the marketing department and helping marketers make user rewards and incentives in their programs. Our customers look a lot like the Marketo customer base. We are Marketo users ourselves at Ribbon. And so they tend to be either mid-sized organizations or enterprise organizations. And some of the names you mentioned here are our customers, and I'm sure you recognize a lot of these names. What we do is we have one mission, which is to make the use of rewards very easy in marketing programs. The idea of using rewards is, of course, not new to marketers. We have been using everything from swag to merchandise to other forms of rewards as long as marketing has been around. What has been missing is a platform that is digital, is online, is global, and then integrates with the tools that marketers use every day. And that sort of was the vision behind Ribbon when we started Ribbon more than 6 years ago. Fast forward now, we are an established company with more than 1,000 customers. Well, let me talk a little bit about the kinds of programs that we are seeing launch in the last 2 to 3 months. And a big challenge really for marketers now is, how do you stand out from the noise, right? This has always been a challenge for marketers, but as you can imagine, everything now has shifted online. A lot of us I'm sure we're probably counting on things like physical events to fill at least part of our pipelines. Maybe we're counting on direct mail to fill part of our pipelines. And then suddenly find, one day we wake up in March and we realize, oh no, all the events I was counting on were canceled or pushed back. Or this big direct mail program I was planning or relying on is no longer feasible because no one is in their offices to receive a piece of direct mail that I was planning to deliver. And so what do I do now, right? And we ourselves kind of went through that, to be honest. We were 3 days away from being in Salt Lake City for the big Qualtrics conference, 16,000 people, Ellen DeGeneres, Michelle Obama. And we were actually co-hosting our booth with Pandora, the music streaming service. Very excited. We were supposed to be in the keynote with the CEO of Qualtrics, giving away digital rewards for filling out a survey. No surprises there. And then 3 days before we were to fly to Salt Lake City, they called everybody and said, sorry, but the event is canceled. And that was a big part of our lead generation for Q1 and Q2. And so the first reaction was we basically cried straight for 3 days. Everyone was upset. What are we going to do? And then, Monday we said, okay, it is what it is. We have to pivot. And what are we going to do to fill our pipelines and make sure that we continue to hit our goals? And that's what a lot of our customers have done. And what we have done is we picked out some key patterns that we see, both in terms of the types of programs, but also industries in which we see this, or the stage of the pipeline where we see this, and bring to you some ideas that you can use yourself. Right? One category of sort of programs you've seen launch in the last 2 to 3 months are around how do you make that human connection without being physically present or being able to talk to somebody in person. When you now have this physical distance due to social distancing, how do you make that connection? And here we have seen rewards kind of being added and overlaid on top of some very interesting programs. And one example, which I'm sure a lot of you have been invited to, are virtual events and webinars, right? And we are doing one of these right now. What used to probably be your in-person user group meeting is now happening as a virtual event. We absolutely see this pattern happening across the board in every industry. Even the ones that have almost never relied on virtual events, like manufacturing and so on, are doing virtual events and webinars. So the question you have to ask yourself as a marketer is, well, what is going to make my webinar stand out in the sea of webinar invitations that everybody is getting? And we've seen companies like Pushly and Own Backup use small rewards, $5, $10, to stand out, get people's attention, engage them, and drive greater registrations and attendance. You can do some of this on a smaller scale, especially maybe as part of a sales process. Lunch and learns, right? A lot of people are stuck at home. They still want to learn. They're open to ideas, thought leadership content. We've seen companies like Bazaar Voice and others working with their sales teams to facilitate lunch and learns from home. And again, kind of sweetening the deal by saying, well, we can't actually deliver you lunch, but we can deliver you a gift card and you can order lunch for yourself, right? So DoorDash or Uber Eats or Grubhub or a pizza gift card kind of works well in that situation. And you take it down to sort of a smallest component, just one-to-one, thanking people for attending demos. Again, a very common pattern we see with the idea that A, people are busy, everyone's getting pinged to do online demos, can't do demos in person anyway. How do we kind of make a lasting impression and leave something behind or have a reason to follow up after the demo? Right. So a small reward to simply say thank you, or I hope you have a great week. A reward can kind of work really well as that sort of a facilitator of creating an emotional connection. So three big categories of program. We see these quite a bit, and I think they can be implemented in the current situation for really any company. Here's another category program that we're seeing an increased interest in the last 2 to 3 months, which is referrals. There is a truism in business that says, in the time of crisis, you should first take care of your current customers. Right? These are the customers you already work hard to onboard and retain, and that's where your current revenue comes from. Make sure you take good care of them. We can go a step further and say, let's not only take good care of our current customers, but can we maybe turn them into our second sales team using a referral style marketing program? Especially powerful if you have a good product reputation, maybe a high NPS score. There are other signals like strong G2 crowd capture reviews. If you feel very good about your product and you feel strongly that your customers are likely to support you, especially in this time, it can be a very powerful tactic. Because customers do want to help their partners or vendors who they work with. They understand the situation. So this sort of ask of your existing customers may in fact resonate quite well in the current situation, especially if you thank them for those referrals. And go even a step further than that and say, hey, not only will we thank you, Mr. Customer, for recommending us to your friend, but if your friend decides to buy buy a product or use our product, we will thank your friend as well. So make the referral double-sided. And that is one of the best practices we always recommend, which is, if you're going to run a referral program, not only should you reward the person making the referral, but also reward the person coming on board as the new customer. It's just great. It also kind of removes any awkwardness from me recommending my friend, because I know both my friend and both of us will be rewarded. Right? So doing a double-sided referral is fantastic. Can be launched relatively easily, especially if you have a tool like Marketo, because you already have the segmentation, the targeting, the form capabilities that are needed to launch this fairly quickly. You don't necessarily have to go out and buy a big referral system to launch a basic referral program. And that is how we're helping companies like Rad Power Bikes and Touchstone and Sequence Health Group. As you can imagine, these 3 examples are in vastly different industries, but they are greatly benefiting from having a very strong referral program. Here's a third category of programs where this may be a good time to launch, which is do a market feedback, customer feedback survey. We're currently helping companies like GoDaddy, Lyft, even universities launch these programs. For example, Old Dominion is looking forward to, okay, what happens in fall? How are students thinking about coming back to school, not coming back to school? What are their preferences in terms of social distancing, virtual events, virtual classes, and things like that? Lyft is in a pretty tough spot along with Uber and others in their category, as you can imagine, but looking forward to, okay, at some point, most of the country will transition from orange to yellow to green. What happens then, right? And how do we prepare for that situation? So surveys are a good time. These surveys are a good one to conduct during this sort of work at home situation. Your user group is conducting a survey using rewards. So it's sort of a live example of how rewards can be used. What I like about this strategy is that the data you get from these surveys can actually feed so many different aspects of marketing, right? Not only what do our customers need, who's ready to buy or who will be ready to buy soon, but you can also make these surveys pain point oriented, problem oriented, which can be great data and stats for any content marketing that you may be planning. Right? So kill lots of different birds with one stone. And surveys are a great sort of natural place to use a reward. Again, you can integrate it with something like SurveyMonkey or Marketo with all the tracking that Ribbon can provide. You can then follow up on a survey reward with additional content or additional calls to action. So those are some examples of programs that we've launched that hopefully you will find valuable and can potentially launch as soon as next week or next month. Some things to keep in mind if you do decide to do something like this, which is one big area is what rewards are appropriate now during a pandemic. Right? As you can imagine, before the pandemic, things like Starbucks were very, very popular on our platform. But now you can give Starbucks away because it's hard for people to use Starbucks or movie theaters and things like that. We've seen a big shift, and we have onboarded some new rewards which are pandemic friendly, right? Or better suitable for a pandemic situation. So we see reward delivery around, rewards around food delivery, very, very popular. Digital entertainment is very popular versus theaters and other physical venues. Gaming is very popular. Everyone's stuck at home with kids, maybe share a reward with their family. Also, interestingly, we've seen a huge jump in people donating their reward. So an interesting way to kind of create goodwill is something that we offer on our platform very, very easily. With every reward campaign you create, you can decide which donation options are available for your recipients. And we've seen a huge spike since March in people just donating their reward to a charity that makes sense to them. Great for the charities, great for the cause, but also kind of creates a halo effect around your marketing that it's not just about the reward and incentive. You also have the option of donating it for a larger cause. So definitely consider donations, especially if you're doing B2B marketing. It just works so well in terms of putting your brand under a positive spotlight. So let me give you a quick tour of what this looks like. I don't have a live demo, thankfully. It's just a couple of animated GIFs to give you a sense of how we work with Marketo. We have specific integrations with other platforms like SurveyMonkey, Qualtrics, and HubSpot, and so on. But this will kind of give you a sense for how the platform works and how easy it is. Now, I know a lot of you are very, very busy, and the last thing you want to do is implement another big, heavy tool. And so we design this for marketers to be turned on within days. You start in Ribbon by creating what we call a reward campaign. Roughly maps to a program or a campaign in Marketo. So every campaign, maybe for a webinar or a survey, you can customize and curate the reward list. Right? When you get the reward for your survey, Rita has curated a list just for that campaign. And we make it very easy to kind of select the rewards you want and donations you want. Once you define the choices that are available to your recipients, so you're not limiting them to just one reward, a palette of rewards or donations can be presented to them. The next thing is some Marketo magic. We integrate really well with Marketo. We are an Innovate partner with Marketo. So we're able to bring on data fields from Marketo. We can limit the number of recipients to first 50, first 70, first 100, if that is the style of promotion you want to run. We have approval workflows built in here. So just in case you want to make sure someone eyeballs the rewards before they go out, you can approve these. And then you can also bring over some custom data fields, either for reporting purposes or for customizing your reward experience itself. So that's the integration with Marketo. And then you customize the email. Similar to Marketo, we have a email template creation capability, and you can customize this with your branding, logo, and messaging. Same thing for, once you're done with that, all you need to do now is kind of place your order. And you don't have to worry about order anxiety. So one of the good things about digital rewards is that unlike swag and merchandise, there's no penalty for ordering too little or too much. If it's too much, you just return everything for a refund. If it's too little, you can go and add more rewards if your program is more successful than you anticipate. So buy a chunk of rewards that makes sense, place your order, and then you plug this into Marketo. Very simple. It plugs directly into your smart campaign. Build your smart campaign the way it makes sense. When data value changes, something gets added to a list, anything that is used to trigger a smart campaign can be used as usual. And then as part of the flow, it's a two-step process. You specify the value of the ribbon campaign. It has an ID as a custom attribute. So you just copy and paste this little key that is available in ribbon. walk over to Marketo and paste it into this value. And then step 2 is you call the ribbon webhook. Okay. And it's the same webhook every single time. So you're not programming a new webhook. It's just a one-time setup. And you call it same webhook almost like an action once you set the campaign ID. And that's it, right? So once Marketo campaign is triggered based on whatever your criteria is, that recipient gets added to the campaign you just designed. And then based on the campaign, we automatically send them an email. The email is authorized just like Marketo. It comes from your domain, right? So it's not a spoofed email or anything like that. They open the email and they choose from the selection that you have curated for them. Right. All of this gets logged back into Marketo. So we log lead activity back to Marketo in terms of the reward is sent, delivered, claimed. So again, additional opportunity here for you to either increase, do lead scoring, or maybe do follow-up content, or to notify a salesperson, whatever makes sense for your marketing or sales process in terms of continuing to engage and move this lead forward. Okay. So that's it. Now, hopefully, it seems pretty easy. It can be set up within 20 minutes, and you can get going pretty fast. Right. So that's the summary. No IT required. Any marketer should be able to do this, especially a lot of you who are very familiar with the ins and outs of Marketo. Digital rewards are safe, contactless. We can deliver these around the world. We have a global catalog. They're instant. Any reward that goes unclaimed. This is an interesting little bit of budget optimization. Any reward that goes unclaimed, we refund you 100% of the rewards back. So you're never wasting your marketing budget on rewards that are not even claimed. We'll track everything. You'll be able to see everything. You get to customize the reward experience, and it's a full cycle integration back into Marketo with the lead activity. Right. So that's a little session around using digital rewards and integrating those rewards into Marketo. Happy to take any questions you guys may have.
All right, so don't be shy, because I know this group is not shy. So, any questions?
It seems pretty straightforward. I mean, it's pretty slick, and there's some good ideas, especially since we've really been forced into the digital realm. I guess maybe a question around quality. Like, do you have any type of, I guess this would be set up with our own segmentation and everything, but making sure that you're not getting people that are just, filling it out just because, and if there's any type of filtering that's done on the ribbon side, or if that's something that's handled on more of your marketing targeted audience.
Yeah, no, it's definitely handled in a few different ways. One is, as you mentioned, a lot of this is very targeted, right? So you usually segment and say, I'm going to invite these people for this reason to a promotion like this one. Some open-ended promotions, like a survey, for example. That's why we do have the approval flow to catch any junk that may come in. But even there, we usually recommend that you invite people. And that's typically where you would use it, like, taking your current list of customers and then inviting them to provide feedback. But if it's truly open, we do have approval capabilities built in, and we'll kind of flag people for trying to, claim the reward or
abuse it. Yeah.
And outside of that, if you plug it into, let's say, a sales process. So for example, we use it quite a bit in our own sales process. The normal sales process qualification will take care of. Not inviting people to a demo because it's just not a good fit. But if they are a good fit and they do show up for the demo, then we do send them a thank you reward.
Very cool.
Yeah. Good question.
Any other questions?
Oh, I'm muted. There you go. Hey, I guess. Hey, I just want to ask you a quick question about that webhook and the responses that come back from it. Could you outline, or do you have like a kind of a JSON doc that we can kind of reference back to? What have you seen people map back into their Marketo instance from that webhook?
Yeah, so we typically recommend mapping it into some of the fields that are standard into Marketo. The doc does explain. In fact, we give you a template. You can just copy and paste it into the Marketo webhook configuration. And that's typically how it works.
Okay. What do you provide back for the response? What are the values again? I think you'd covered it a little bit.
Yeah, that I would have to that would be sort of a little bit out of my depth to see what technically we provide at the JSON level. But I know we provide error codes and so on, so that it's executed correctly. And then all the lead activity you saw, that happens out of band. So that's once the reward is delivered, as and when it gets sent and claimed, we use the standard Marketo lead activity API to log those.
Okay. Very cool.
Excellent. Right. Well, I may have to drop off, but Rita is gonna be here for the rest of your session. So pleasure meeting you all, and definitely make sure you complete the survey that Trent is gonna launch after the session, and we'll be able to deliver you sort of a live experience of how the reward delivery works. Right. But pleasure meeting you all, and maybe next time we'll see you guys in person in Salt Lake.
That's right. Well, thank you, Janesh, and Rita. Thank you. Appreciate that very much, and thanks again for your sponsorship and offering those cards. So we'll all get a chance to see how it works in live and in person.
Sounds good. Take care, guys.
Cool. Thank you, everybody. All right, so we're going to jump back in, and once again, appreciate the folks from Ribbon with us today. Whoops. So now the MasterMind session. So Andrew, let Andrew kind of run with this one, but we had 4. Oops. So Nicole saying my link went to the wrong because I had a period at the end of it. Try it again. Yeah, so the link's in there. So again, sorry, I put a period in it by accident. My apologies. But we'll jump into the MasterMind session. So Andrew, we had 4 submissions. And so we kind of either roll the dice or take it one from the top and work through it, however you want to do it.
All right. Well, I think we'll start at the top, and then we'll go from there. And we'll get through as many of these as we can, and then which ones we don't get through, we will save for next month. Or feel free to stick on or reach out to either Trent or myself privately, and we'd be happy to help you there too. So the way this works here is if you put your name up there, I'll just call on you. And so what you'll do is just give us a quick download of the issue in your own words, and then we'll turn it over to the group and say, what do you guys think? So Max, why don't we go ahead and start with you? Tell us a little bit about your issue, and then let's get the collective group working on it.
Yeah, so I am working on connecting MSI to my Salesforce instance, and we already have a, I guess, special setup when it comes to our Salesforce connection. But I've met with my Salesforce engineer a couple times and a couple different people to try to figure out where this issue is coming from. That sorry, I'm thinking and talking at the same time. The lead score value is unable to be read from Salesforce. We've gone through each one of the values and tried to map them. Everything that we can see in Salesforce is indicating that it should be passing back to Marketo. We've mapped fields. We've reviewed the permissions, but for some reason this issue is persistent, and it's also preventing our interesting moments from passing through. And that's from Marketo to Salesforce, so that they're mapped on the contact record of the Salesforce contact. So if anybody else has had this issue or has set up MSI before.
All right, we'll turn it over to the group. What do you guys think?
Just taking a wild stab at this. So you're doing it on the contact record. Are you noticing the same thing with like a lead record? Is it something to do with the objects system to system?
That's what I suspect, because we, as far as I know, the the objects are configured a little bit differently in Salesforce. However, like, we do have a normal Salesforce to Marketo sync that is functional. It's just the MSI information that's not passing over correctly to the contact record. But I haven't noticed anything on the lead record, since we use those a little bit different.
So just so I understand, then, are you saying that you're getting a lead score on the contact and the lead record right now from like the Marketo person account? You're just not getting, you're not getting that from MSI
Right.
activity?
So yeah, we're trying to get interesting moments to pass through as well, and the MSI scoring isn't functional, nor are any of the interesting moments. And I have confirmed that the interesting moments are showing in Marketo. I've created a couple smart lists to review those and then cross-reference to their contact record in Salesforce, and it's not populating.
Could you tell me a little bit about some of the, so you've said a couple of times here that your Salesforce instance is a little bit different. In what way? What do you mean exactly?
That's. I wish I could speak to it more. I'm unfortunately not too into the Salesforce instance, as it's another department that does manage the full engineering of it. But I know that our opportunities are established a little bit differently. We don't close opportunities. They do remain open as a record. So I know that's a little bit different, but I wish I could speak to more of the back end of it.
Okay. But it's
I am
mostly
pretty
the opportunity side of things. It's not necessarily, well, I guess it might be the lead conversion rules, but it's not necessarily something that would impact the contact record that you're talking about right now, where you want that scoring data to appear. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I assume that there isn't much unique architecture as far as the contact and lead goes, and it's mostly on the opportunity.
Okay. I think, and Trent and Andrew, I think you guys, might have a little bit more experience on the MSI side of things than I do, but in general, on the Salesforce connector side of things, I think usually what dictates what you can and can't do are the user permissions of the Marketo sync user on Salesforce from a profile settings perspective, and also from the sharing rules perspective within your Salesforce instance. Have you gone through that process with your Salesforce admin to kind of review and log in as the Marketo sync user to see if that's those fields are visible and editable to the Marketo sync user that's in Salesforce?
Yeah, we have reviewed the the Marketo user to make sure that those are all visible, and we've also mapped them to the contact record windows, and we've reviewed all that, but it doesn't seem like anything that we are doing is fully allowing their permissions to pass through from Marketo over to Salesforce.
Okay.
Is there, do you know what the Salesforce, like what you're working on? Is it enterprise or professional edition or?
It's enterprise.
Okay. It's just doing some quick Google foo, and
Yeah.
it looks like there is different setup depending on what you're working on.
Yeah, and we have followed the Marketo docs for Enterprise Edition. I think we're about to like step 6. And on the lead record, the relative score value is unable to be mapped, which is weird. We can see relative score, but not relative score value.
How's the field set up? Is it a score field or is it on the Marketo side?
On the Marketo side, it is, let me double check. I know in Salesforce, the score value, one of them was a formula and one of them was a specific value. But I unfortunately don't have access to the Salesforce side of it other than like working with my engineer.
Okay.
And they are mapping into Marketo. We've noticed that the relative score is actually double mapped to the lead and contact. So we should have all the information passing through, but for some reason it's not.
It's not going the other way.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not passing over to Salesforce.
The relative score is passed to the lead and the contact. You're getting a score that comes into the relative score in Salesforce. It's successfully passing to Marketo. When you pass it from Marketo to Salesforce, that's when you're running into problems. Is that right? I just want to repeat that.
Yeah. So we're trying to pass over interesting moments and the relative score information, but that is not passing into Salesforce.
And you have edit rights to that field on the Marketo sync user, so that's checked and confirmed.
Yeah.
Like updates aren't blocked on that.
Yeah.
To say that there's things that permissions are one thing I was thinking about, Michael, as you're talking about in the sync issues that you're talking about, Nicole. So have you checked Max and Marketo to make sure that the sync is not disabled for that particular field? I just ran into that recently with the client, and there's a bunch of fields that were disabled. It's like, oh, no wonder we're not getting things back in Salesforce.
Yeah.
Like, it's enabled. I mean, simple little
like hidden fields.
No, it shouldn't be a hidden field. It should be just if you go into your admin and look at your field management, you should be able to just click on the field that's supposed to sync over, and in the center box console area, when you click on that field, it should give some information along those lines. But one of them should say, is it Salesforce sync or something like that? Say, yeah, Salesforce sync. I think said enable or none, or disable or none. And if it's disabled, then nothing's, it's being pushed into Marketo, but not being pushed from Marketo back out. So
yeah, revenue export sync enabled for, let's see. Okay, it looks.
You might also take a look.
Okay, yeah, those look like they are disabled. So.
Oh, that might be.
That might be it.
Yeah. So do you have other people, and I don't know how big your organization is, but if you have other people that are working on elements of the Salesforce instance, right, you want it disabled during that time when you're making updates to the schema that impact Marketo, and then you want to turn it back on. So, I mean, you can make changes to it in between. It gets a little bit dicey sometimes if you have a high velocity database where a lot of data is changing back and forth very quickly. So they usually recommend at professional services that you turn that off, make any changes, then turn it back on so that all of the data, all of the updates to the schema sync in the way that you intend them to from Marketo and between the two.
Yeah, and so I'm just looking at relative score value right now, and the revenue export sync, that is that update for the sync is under the Salesforce integration in Marketo. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
And then the other thing, so there's, I like the data type mismatch point. That's a good one to kind of just check and make sure that your Salesforce field type matches the field type for Marketo. So there's no compatibility issues there. Sometimes you'll see, if you're seeing that the mapping between your Salesforce and your Marketo instance, you're not able to get that mapping, that can be a piece of that. So even if it's enabled, if there's a type mismatch, then you'll run into errors there.
That was
Okay.
Michael, that's what I was thinking too. Was also potentially the problem is that there was a field match or field type mismatch, and I see that all the time in sync errors. In fact, that's probably the number one thing I see when it comes to sync errors is a field type mismatch. So that would be something to really just make sure that you have nailed down.
Yeah, but it's just interesting that it's working one way but not the other.
But not the
Yeah,
other way,
like,
right.
yeah.
Mhm.
So.
So I wonder with that too, if, one of the areas where you can get information about sync errors is to look into notifications of your Marketo instance and see if there's any SFTC sync notifications that you're seeing there. And if you double click on those, it'll usually give you some kind of an error code or an error message that comes back from Salesforce into the Marketo instance. Usually if you have a push error, so I'm trying to think of the right example there. If you are pushing a field to Salesforce and you delete the field in Salesforce, for example, or you've had a change to the field in Salesforce, Marketo doesn't necessarily pick that up right away. Or if you, what's the other example? Oh, the example is if you go to push to like a field that's in a one-directional object, like an opportunity or an account. Marketo will still make the push even though it's a one-directional opportunity, and you won't see the error unless you look in that notification section.
Okay. Yeah. We do have a fair share of sync errors, but it's usually automatically resolved or unable to update person.
I'm trying to go into an instance to see if I can find anything that can help you.
That was not me. That was my puppy. Apologies.
Sure, Mac. Sure, whatever, man, dude.
I think, Trent and I have spoken often. I'm going through the same puppy trials and tribulations right now. I had mine try to play tug of war on me the other day while I was in the middle of this book club for we're interviewing an Army Ranger for Memorial Day and talking about extreme ownership. And meanwhile, she's sitting here playing tug of war with me. I look like I'm, in Star Trek being hit by a photon torpedo while I'm trying to talk to this cat. So you've been there.
So while Michael's out there looking, I'm gonna put a plug in. So submit that survey, folks. I mean, you're gonna lose $10 if you don't do it. So
Yeah.
Make sure you take care of that sometime in the next, during now or the next little bit.
Yeah, it'll take you less than 2 minutes, and it'll be.
It really does. Yeah. Andrew and I are not asking for a lot of information. We're just looking for some great feedback. So.
Were you one of the guys that was responding back on that Lead the Way Fund thing for the Army Rangers, for the vets, to support the vets? I can't remember it. No, it wasn't you. It was somebody else. Excuse, sorry about that.
No. Well, Trent, I think we're at time here, so I want to be respectful to everybody's time, and I have my over-the-shoulder visitor. But why don't we do this? Let me ask just very, very briefly, how is this as kind of an idea in terms of an exercise, this mastermind, where we all kind of pick on one problem and see if we can solve it? Was this helpful for everybody?
Yeah, I like the idea, actually. I don't think I've seen it done too often. I think probably a little bit of runtime to understand, to think about what problems you have. I'm sure I have problems. I just haven't thought about which ones I want to air out and have everybody kind of pick through. But I like the idea of doing it. And there's, You know, there's always something to be learned in these groups. Actually, want to talk about the webhook one briefly too, because I've had a fair amount of time working on the webhook. I just wrote an article about personalization using the weather, like local weather conditions, use it from a webhook. And so there's some bugs about, not bugs, but there's some nuances about the response mapping coming back off of the webhook function in Marketo that's kind of worth noting. I know you don't have time, but I you know, who was it that brought that up? I'd love to be able to chat with that person.
Yeah. Why don't we do this? Trent, is everybody on the Salt Lake City MOPS Slack? Do we know?
I'm not.
I don't think so. Yeah, not everybody yet.
Okay.
What I can do is, how about if I do this? I can send out a link to everybody with a link to that channel. If you're not subscribed, I know Cameron, who just left us, is on, but and Ian was on it, and a few others, and I know Michael is, but yeah, I'll send out that link, and then we can join that group, and then there's no sub-channel, like I said, the Salt Lake City, I can't remember, Salt Lake City MOPS or something like that, Mug MOPS or something like that.
MOPS SLC or something like that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, supposed to, from that standpoint, they kind of log into and submit. And then that being said, too, is that I want to make a copy of the chat and grab some of those other questions, because I know that Nicole had a really good question, Cameron had one who's off, and Marcella, who also had a question as well, which are really good ones. All of them are really good. So one's about life cycle, one's about subscription service, preference center, and Nicole, you had one about score change, data change values and stuff. So in the life cycle, figure out kind of why things are changing along those lines. So I think those are great. Those are great questions. So
Yeah.
Yeah, and you guys aren't talking about the Slack channel that Sydney Mulligan has going on, that like
Yeah.
massive. It's a little intimidating because I'd rather it be a smaller, like more localized group. So yeah, getting that Salt Lake.
yeah, there's a sub channel there, Nicole. That's let me pull it up here really quickly. I'll just let everybody know it's
I'm not like trying to
It
put my
is.
whole
if you
self
go
on
to,
blast.
yeah, you know, it's basically hashtag mops.area dot blah, 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 blah. Hashtag mops area SLC. So if you add that that sub channel, that group to the Mops Professionals channel,
Mhm.
that's where it's kind of like we got that created. I think Ian helped us put together an approval by Atomos for that standpoint, for that standpoint. So yep, if you go into there, so it's hashtag mops area SLC.
And it's Nicole, it's a good one too, because I'm with you. I don't want to like broadcast my dirty laundry to the world.
Yeah, and I fit like I kind of can't. Like I'm held as a public company. Yeah.
I work for a very private nonprofit
Yeah.
that most of us are very familiar with in the state of Utah, and that organization is exceedingly conservative.
Yes.
So yeah, I totally get it. But the SLC channel actually is pretty good because it doesn't have overwhelming traffic. But it would be nice, you know, if we, you know, as we're all in there, as these questions kind of come up, post them in there, and you know, we can always have virtual masterminds in between, or if we need to, you know, and Trent, I haven't talked to you about this, but I'll chuck it out to the group anyway. Is, you know, if we want to have, you know, if we need a virtual mastermind on a specific topic within the group, you know, let's figure out a time that we can all get together and spend 30 minutes, you know, working through a problem or something like that. So
yeah, absolutely.
But you know, let's post those questions in there that we've got. Trent, I think you were right. Let's post the chat in there, and let's get the questions in there, and then let's talk through them there, because I think it'd be, you know, as much as it'd be nice to kind of spend a bunch of time on the call here. I know we've all got other obligations too. So.
Yeah. So on that point, Nicole, obviously, if anybody has sensitivity in regards to the organizations or pose those questions, send them to me, and I'll post them. Obviously, we'll make it as generic as possible about the issue itself, right? So that way, then it doesn't come from you, but comes from me. You know, we can do it that way.
That's good.
That channel allows you to really PM people, and you know, I've gotten, even on my Marketo, my summit conversation, sometimes I get messages even from like champions and people like that are asking questions. No one of us is smarter than all of us.
Yeah. So yeah, so we'll send out that the email with obviously the links to the recording. So thankful to Michael Tucker, who's the leader of the virtual Marketo user group. So he'll say a wave there, but he does some great stuff. So I'm glad he's with us today. For that, he's kind of set up that YouTube channel, so we'll get this posted up there, and then I'll send out a follow-up email with the links to the information. And if you haven't grabbed the survey yet, try to grab it really quick before I shut this off, and we'll go from there, and then we'll post those other questions. All right.
Sounds good.
Thanks,
Guys.
everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for having us.
Sounds good.
Andrew.
Thank you.
Beth, thank you.
Bye.